Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Another Monday. By the way, today is the Green Day, St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to you. It's a coincidence. I wasn't going to wear green, but I just happened to wear it and then found out it's St. Patrick's Day. So we have a guest today. No surprise, on most of my live streams, I have a guest. We have a special guest today with an appropriate topic. And of course, the topic, as you have seen from the title, is the impact of tariffs on the housing market, whether it's right now or in the next 6 months or the next 3, 4, 5 years. So we want to chat about that, what's going to happen with the tariffs. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed the music, because I'm going to shut it down so that it doesn't get in our conversation and all that. We're just going to lower that. But I'm glad you're here. My name is Mike Patel. The channel is Home Savvy Central. It's a newer channel, but it's growing steadily. Thanks for your support. And if you're watching live today, or if you're watching this as a recording, do make comments. Let us know what you think about the tariffs or the impact of tariffs, and join the conversation either by comments or later on, if you're watching as a recording, make some comments as a recorded guest. So with that, I'm going to bring on stage Adam Miller. He's in Florida. He used to be in Hawaii. He's been a guest previously. He's very up to date, not only on the Florida market and the Lakeland area where he's at, but he's also up to date on the national real estate market, housing market, and on what's happening on the tariffs. And I just found out that Maui is having issues too. So Adam, welcome. Please tell us about yourself.
Hey there, aloha, Mike. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. It's we're in Lakewood Ranch, Florida. It's about an hour south of Tampa. It's about 20 miles inland from some of the most beautiful beaches and condo-ridden area of the state. So we're talking about Siesta Key, Anna Maria Island, Lido Key, Longboat Key. Yeah, big issue here in Florida, as you know.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into the tariff and the impact, let's talk about your local market. I'll give you a brief things, what's happening in Southern California, so you can compare. Tell us, generally speaking, of course, as you know, especially if you're a viewer, markets are very local. What's happening in Anaheim, where I'm at, may not be happening in Lakeland, where Adam is, or where you are. But what we're talking about is general today on average. So just keep that in mind. So in general, tell us what's happening in your local neighborhood or county or city and in Florida. And then I'll talk about my stuff in Orange County.
Sure. Yeah. This area, the area that I'm in is basically comprised of 2 counties. And we are seeing like just a massive effect of high interest rates, high prices, insurance rates going up, HOA fees going up, taxes going up. And yeah, I don't want to say it's come to a screeching halt, but homes are definitely sitting on the market longer. They just hit, I think, just today or yesterday, on average, 90 days on the market. And prices are coming down. I just pulled up the stats real quick. Prices are down in the 2 counties, either between 4% and 10% over the same time last year. And new listings are up. New listings are up in my county, almost 9%. And in Sarasota County, closer to the water, it's up 21%.
Wow.
And they are just sitting. We actually expired our first listing in like, I want to say like 8 or 9 years.
No way, really?
First time.
What's the reason behind that? I mean, in general, of course, each home is different, but overall, what's this?
Well, at the end of the day, it's all pricing.
Okay.
And, if you bought a house when prices were a little higher, you want to be able to net a certain amount of money. And some sellers are not prepared to price their home according to a market that is drastically shifting.
Okay. Well, good to know. And we'll talk more about it as we go along. Let me give you a little synopsis before we start talking about the tariff. I'm in Orange County, Anaheim Hills, Orange County, California, West Coast, if you don't know. Over here, things are pretty strong. Homes are selling. They used to be 15 days a few months back, but now they're taking a little bit longer. But homes are selling if they're priced right, obviously. They're getting pretty much full price or very close to full price. Homes, in Anaheim Hills, our medium price is about 1.2. In Orange County, it's about $1 million, 1.2 medium home price. So all that home near $1 million or under are just flying out the door. Homes over $2 million is taking a little bit longer, but the market is still strong. I'd say it's pretty active.
Wow.
Homes are selling. Of course, it has to be priced right, marketed right, have their good things going on in there. So overall, it's pretty good. So let's jump into a couple of things. And I'm going to start with what's happening with tariffs as a direct impact on housing, not what's happening to the people's mentality or tension. But let's talk about housing. I'm going to share a screen and start with what's happening in Arizona. Let's see. That one is, let's see, which one is that? Okay, let's start with this one. Canadian, and we're going to talk about Canadian snowbirds because the number one impact, as you know, Adam, there's a lot of tariffs hit upon Mexico and Canada, but for some reason, the Canadian tariffs is having a huge impact on housing more than the Mexican tariffs. So I came across this article. It's from Arizona Family. Canadian snowbirds. By the way, can you see my screen?
Yep, I see it.
Okay. So I'll just read this article and we'll kind of discuss a little bit about what's happening there. Canadian snowbirds in Arizona expressed concern over trade tensions. Let's read further. This came out on March 11th, just a few days ago. Yuma, Arizona, from the article Arizona Family. Trade tensions between the US and Canada reached new heights Tuesday as President Donald Trump first announced a plan to double tariffs on Canadian steel to 50%, only to later reverse courses. Canadian snowbirds, already uneasy about the US trade policy, now feel even more uncertain about their travel and financial decisions. Colleen is a Canadian and has spent the past 16 winters in Yuma, but she says next year will likely be different. She said most likely she won't be coming back to Arizona. She said it's due to health reasons and the way tariffs are panning out. President Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian imports. Additionally, a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum is set to take effect Wednesday. Now, as you know, Adam, some of these tariffs were implied or, I said implied on February 1st, then they were retracted, then they were executed again on March 1st.
Yep.
Right? So let's talk about it. The last sentence I want to read out here is there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unpredictability, said Arsenault. It's leaving a lot of unanswered questions for the tourism industry, which heavily relies on Canadian visitors. So I've heard from other reports, talking to another realtor, that a lot of the Canadians are actually selling their homes in Arizona as they are in Canada, as they are in Maui and Florida. So let's talk about that. What does this article tell you about the direct impact of tariff on housing?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to pull up some data. It's tough to get the data to see how many Canadians are actually selling their properties. I do have a phone call in to somebody who's going to be able to pull up some data.
Okay.
And we're a little inland, so even though there are Canadians, there are snowbirds who come down here. The vast majority of them are ones who invest in condos near the beach.
Okay.
And so it may be hard to figure out their reason for selling, because we have known now since we got hit with back-to-back hurricanes, that there were going to be a lot of folks, just generally speaking, selling their condos near to the water for insurance reasons, the cost to rebuild, the HOA rates going up, the special assessments going up. So it's going to be hard for us to pinpoint whether or not there are Canadians who are selling because of those reasons or because of tariffs, or maybe a combination of all of those.
I see. Now you mentioned HOA is going up, which is understandable. What's the thing you said about the assessment? What can you clarify that to the homeowners?
Yes, the special assessments is a massive issue, and I know this is something that our buddy Paul talks about a lot. So, kind of Cliff Note version is back in 2023 when the name is I'm drawing a blank on the name, but there was the Surfside condo that collapsed in southeast Florida. And so that basically changed changed the rules. The government changed the law on special assessments. And basically, the Clip Note version is now HOAs are being forced, homeowners associations are being forced to put aside money for repairs or paying for repairs that could be caused from just being old and not getting anything done, or just from storm damage. So these special assessments or condo associations are getting hit with special assessments that these homeowners have to pay. And some of them are tens of thousands, some of them are hundreds of thousands, some of them are in the millions of dollars. And it's a challenge, because how can you afford it in between your mortgage and your taxes and your homeowners association fees and your utilities, and your fees to, Airbnb or vacation rental by owners, and then a special assessment on top of it.
Right. And especially if you're a senior or if you're a baby boomer and those are the snowbirds that are moving in, they have fixed income. All of a sudden, you got to come up with 10 grand, 25 grand, 100 grand. They don't have it. And these are due up front. They're not on a monthly payment, are they?
Yep.
Are they paid upfront, like one-time fee or?
No. Well, I don't want to speak specifically to every condo. I'm familiar with special assessments. Generally, it is not just a one-time fee. Sometimes my experience, it's like it's $100,000 divided by the number of units in the community, spread out over X number of years.
Okay, so that's good, because if I have to come up with 25 grand one-time check, I'm gonna, when I say I'm a snowbirder, retired, fixed income or limited income, I don't have that kind of money. I mean, or if I had it, I don't want to spend it on an assessment, and I live there 2 or 3 months out of the year,
Sure. And the challenge becomes, though, if you choose to sell it, the next buyer, first of all, has to be made aware of it, and then they've got to decide whether or not they have the money to take on all those fees.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk about the next slide. It also had to do with Florida and has to do with the new regulations from the Trump administration. And by the way, just as a disclosure, this is not about what Trump is doing, and it's nothing political. It's about what these ordinances or executive orders or tariffs are having impact on the housing. It's not if I'm red or blue or purple or left or right. So just want to disclose that. Nothing against the administration. We're just talking about the news that came out. What is the potential impact of it in your local area or in my local area or wherever? So if I'm talking about this slide, which I'm sure you can see now, but the Florida snowbirds from Canada will be subject to new federal rules. So I'm going to read a little bit about it. And this article came out on March 12th, 2025, just a few days ago. West Palm Beach, Florida. Canadians who visit Florida and stay for long periods of time will soon have to deal with new immigration requirements. And of course, this has nothing to do with the tariffs, but we're talking about the new regulations, implications, tariffs that's being set upon Mexico and China and everywhere. So approximately 1 million Canadian snowbirds flock to the US annually. The Sunshine State is their favorite destination. The rules for them are about to be tightened. The US Department of Homeland Security is reportedly about to release the exact details, and in the meantime, an online portal is already up on the web. I'm going to skip these and go back at the bottom and read further. They might have to answer a few questions from inside their car at a border, but they've never needed formal documents prior. They'll need to have what is called an I-94 form, proof that they are an approved legal visitor. They'll also have to report their arrival date and the length of their stay. So how does that grab you, Adam? If you were a snowbird, had been coming here for 20 years, just drive, and now all of a sudden you have all this stuff on top of the tariffs and your HOA going up.
Yeah, I mean, I have to take my personal feeling, if I was Canadian, how I would feel if all of a sudden, after coming to the United States for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, 40 years, how I would feel that, now I've got to fill out paperwork. I've got to get fingerprinted. I have to register if I intend to stay in the United States for over 30 days. Does it make sense? I understand why you do it. Of course, you need to know, you need to know who's coming in the country. And so I think it's probably the same with everything. Some people are going to be furious that they have to do that now. Some people are going to be like, okay, new rules. That's what I have to do. Some people will be understanding as to why those rules are getting implemented. But it'd be interested to see if it has such an impact that somebody says, you know something, forget it. I'm taking my money elsewhere.
Right, right.
We don't know. It'll be interesting.
Right. Okay. And the reason we bring it up because it's a combination, right? One is that tariffs have increased cost or are going to increase cost about travel and about owning property in USA or whatever. So some of these Canadians are kind of pissed. Some of them just want to move on because of the tariffs. Some, HOA is going up. So there's other reasons they're selling. One is the assessments you mentioned. That's very high. So if I was an owner and have to pay 25 grand, I'd rather sell it. If my HOA was 300 all these years, and all of a sudden it's $600 or $1,000, and in many condo complexes they've jumped 2, 3, 4 times, I'm going to sell. But let's look at what is the direct impact of tariffs on housing cost, not just to Canadians, but to the locals. So I'm going to put up another slide that I can share.
Yeah, and real quick too, from the Canadian standpoint, I think it's going to be a combination of two things. I think there are going to be folks who make a decision politically, right? Politically, I disagree with the tariffs. I disagree that I have to, register. I disagree that I have to do thumbprints. And then there's going to be the other ones who do it strictly on financial.
Mm-hmm. It's a combination, right? It's like anything else. Some people leave because of the restrictions. Some people are cost effective. They have no income or they can pay extra $300, $400 a month in HOA fees. On top of that, now that there's more housing, right? There's more. Is it true that there's more housing right now as far as homes? There's more on inventory. That means the rent will go down, right? When there's more inventory, rents go down. So if I'm a Canadian and my expense is going up, but my rents are going to go down, or it's going to take me 3 more months to rent my place out, I'm at a loss.
Yep, that certainly could happen. Yep.
So, and that is happening, right? I mean, I talk to other agents and the little things impact. And we're talking about one person, but there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Canadians who own condos or rentals throughout the USA, including Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So let's look at this slide here. It talks about the direct impact of tariffs on housing. This is exactly what we're talking about. Tariffs have a direct and immediate effect on housing cost, primarily through their influence on the price of construction materials. When tariffs are imposed on key building materials such as lumber, steel, aluminum, and other imported goods, the additional costs are often transferred down the supply chain to developers, contractors, and ultimately home buyers. This section delves into the specific ways in which tariffs directly impact housing market. So let's talk about the first one, which is on construction materials. Based on your opinion, Adam, how does it increase the cost on the construction?
Yeah, so I am in an extremely interesting area, unlike anything else that I am aware of in the country. So Lakewood Ranch is a planned unit development. Mm-hmm. It is in 2 counties, and it is made up of about 45 different neighborhoods. I was working on a script today for an upcoming video, and I was surprised at how wrong I was. And what I'm getting at is I was under the impression, without looking, that there were about 10 to 15 new neighborhoods currently under construction. Well, when I was doing my research, there was actually 25 new neighborhoods currently under construction in my town, in Lakewood Ranch. That is 25 that are under construction. Wow. Some of them are brand new, just broke ground. Some of them, are probably going to, have a couple of hundred homes, but that means builders are still building. Mm-hmm. And builders are also sitting on homes because the market is slowed down, but they're still building. So it is highly likely that their costs will go up. Right. Because we know that the vast majority of lumber comes into our country from Canada. Mm-hmm. And same with steel and aluminum. And I understand the premise of what the intention is, right? To get people to build in America, right? To make things in America. Mm-hmm. The reality is that's not happening this year or next year. So in the meantime, builders are going to take that cost and they're going to pass it on to consumers.
Right. Yep. They have to, right? I mean,
They have to.
I saw a report, and hopefully I'll show it to you, but I read a report that if this tariffs remain, and if, he may take it off, the Trump administration may release it or reduce the 25% to 10%. We don't know. But if it remains at 25%, what the report said, I read it yesterday, and I hope I can show it. I'll try to show it to you. They said that on average home, right? On an average home, not the big homes or the small homes, their construction cost will go up by $9,000 directly due to the tariffs. Okay. Now that $9,000, if I'm a developer or a contractor, I'm going to make profit. So I'm not going to increase my home price by $9,000, right? I'm probably going to increase it by $18,000 because I'm in it for the profit, right? By the time you pay taxes.
Sure.
So if it costs me $10,000 extra, I'm going to charge you 20 grand.
Yep. And
right?
labor is going to go up too.
Grand.
So they're not going to eat that cost.
Right. They're going to give it, somebody's going to pay for it. And usually it is us, the consumer, the home buyer or the home seller who's selling their home and then going to buy a home. Eventually that's what's going to happen. So let's look at it further. Let me see here. Go back here. Let's talk about the steel and aluminum. We've talked about lumber a lot. And the reason lumber is so important is, as you know, Adam, 70% of all lumber, up to 70%, comes from Canada.
Yep.
Right. And USA is only producing 30% of that because there's not a lot of lumber as much as Canada. So this is a big issue. The 25% on lumber is a big issue because we're talking 70% of all the lumber to US. Let's talk about the steel and aluminum because that's also a big factor. These materials are essential for structural components, roofing, appliances, and HVAC system, the air conditioning systems and heating systems. The 2018 tariffs on steel, which was 25%, and on aluminum 10%, resulted in notable price hikes, increasing the cost of both residential and commercial construction projects. So there is a direct impact. We have seen it before in 2018, and we'll probably see it, if not this year, in 2026 or 2027. Let's go furthermore. Higher home prices. Builders typically pass increased material costs on to buyers to maintain profit margins. This results in higher listing prices for new homes. Therefore, it is more challenging for first-time buyers to enter the market and reducing overall housing affordability. So the question is, Adam, you mentioned that in your city alone, where you work, there's so many new home construction going on. If there's so many homes construction going on and around your cities, there's inventory increasing, that's going to make the prices go down. So these builders, if there's so many empty homes, how will it impact? How is it advantageous to a buyer like me? If I want to buy, if I get a discount, I'm going to take it. But at the same time, if I'm a seller, I bought a house last year, now I got to move, it's going to drop my price as a seller.
Yeah, I only can speak specifically for Florida, but we are in a very interesting predicament because yes, prices are already coming down and inventory is already jacked up, and we're in between about 4.5 months of inventory to a little over 6.5 months of inventory between the two towns. That is
which means, and I could be wrong, 6 months inventory means it's a buyer's market.
That is correct. Right? That is not including all the new construction because, as you know, home builders have to build. They have, I don't know what their specific timeline is, but they have a commitment to finish that neighborhood. Right? They can't just like stop building and kick back for a while till prices drop. So they still have to build. So right now, it's interesting because rates are still high, but the incentives from the home builders are unbelievable. It's just incredible how much they are offering right now.
Do you know what they're offering? Maybe there's a buyer on this show or recording, and if they have a good deal, they can contact you. But what are they basically offering in general? Of course, each neighborhood is different, but
there's too many to list. But the vast majority of them are offering like 4.9%, 4.99% interest rate, or a two to one interest rate buy down, which is for the first year your interest rate is going to be 4.9%, and for the next second to 30 years going to be 5% or 5.25%.
Right.
They're offering cash for closing costs, cash for rate buy downs, cash for their design center.
For
It
the
is just
upgrades,
incredible.
upgrades and things.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses, because obviously their costs are going to go up,
Mm-hmm.
but they're
Right.
still going to need to compete with all the resale homes that are
Mm-hmm.
listed for sale. So it's interesting to see if their incentives are going to get even just more insane, or are they going to kind of tighten up a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about to see. Yeah. So let's talk about somebody like me who owns a house, whether I'm in Arizona or Maui or Florida or California, right? The impact on a guy like me who already has a house, or if I'm renting, or if I'm a landlord and I have rented my house, impact of renovations on remodeling cost. Tariffs also affect homeowners planning renovations or remodels. Higher prices for materials like lumber, metal fixtures, and imported tiles mean that renovation projects become more expensive, potentially delaying or downsizing planning improvements. How valid is that?
Yeah, I mean that's the flip side, right? You're talking about one is the argument of potential new home buyers and sellers who are wanting to sell in the market, and then you have people who want to eventually sell and upgrade their house first, and worried about how much money do I spend on lumber or new AC systems?
Right,
Can I make money? Can I
right,
make a profit if I
right,
have to spend all this money at higher costs?
right. Yeah. So it's a big factor. Now, I want to add something else with it. Of course, we have the tariff thing going on, but one of the biggest campaign promises for the Trump administration was the mass deportation, which has been happening, not at a massive level, but it has been happening. And this is nothing new. Obama did it, Biden did it, Trump did it in his first term. But this time it's different because Trump wants to mass deport. He doesn't want to deport 1 million or 2 million like they did before. All of these presidents deported 1 to 2 million illegal immigrants during their term. We're talking 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. So now we're talking about your city. Let's talk about your area, Lakeland, where they have 25, 30 developments. And one, there's rising inventory, so there's a less demand. But now what's happening is the construction cost is going to go up. But guess what happens if these people are deported? 20 to 25% of construction workers may or may not be documented, right? If these guys go, there's going to be labor shortage. If there's a labor shortage, builders are going to charge you more because it's going to cost them more. And now the lumber's costing more. So what's happening? There's a a seesaw going on. One, you have a rising inventory. At the same time, there's rising costs for the contractor. So somebody's going to lose. And who's going to lose? The consumers or the builders?
It's most likely going to be the consumers, because obviously, whether you're a landscaping company or a construction company, you got an obligation to keep your business afloat, and you know how that works. I mean, we've talked about it for years, trickle down economics.
Right.
Sometimes it works the opposite way.
Yeah. So there's a lot of what do you call, a lot of things that are happening that have a big impact. So little things happening, right? On one hand, the interest rates are not dropping. Trump wants to bring it down to 3%, which I don't think is not going to happen. Whether it's Trump or 2020, when is the next election? 2028.
Yep.
That's not going to happen then either, whoever the president is, because the numbers don't match. And I don't want to get into that, but personally, I don't think we'll see 3% in the next 20, 25 years, or at least until I'm in the real estate business. Hopefully I'll be gone by then.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have higher prices. You have, because of tariffs, you have construction costs going up, you have labor costs going up, and then you have the interest rates staying high. So,
yeah, I mean, you are just as well versed as I am, and probably follow a lot of the same people. There is nobody that I have seen in the real estate business. It's only politicians who are talking about interest rates being in the 5s.
Yeah, and I would say, and I'm lying when I say that, but at least 50% of the politicians are liars. But I could be wrong, could be more. So let's not go there, because when they say something, it doesn't really mean anything, especially these days. Most politicians are lying or don't keep their word. Oh yeah, I'll do this, and they never do it. They don't give a crap about it.
There's no real estate expert.
Yeah.
No real estate experts. No reliable real estate experts who are like, yeah, I think interest rates will be to 5% by next month or the following month. I've heard like maybe in the high fives by the end of the fourth quarter of this year, maybe.
Mhm. Maybe.
So that's a big issue. And going back to labor, obviously we know that people who are here illegally are not going to their jobs for sure. And in this area of those 45 neighborhoods, they all have landscaping companies.
Okay.
At minimum, the HOA hires landscapers to do kind of the common area, right? And on the opposite end, there are a ton, I don't know the number of those 45, maybe half, that are maintenance free, which means of the 1,000 homes that are in there, the homeowners are not trimming and mowing. It's a landscaping company. So those are hundreds of employees who are either, I don't know if they're legal or not, but I'm sure there's a percentage who are not legal, who are probably not coming to work.
Right.
And probably not a whole lot of people lining up for those jobs.
So you might see a depreciation or a less quality work in landscaping because, hey, the gardener didn't show up, or there was supposed to be 10 today, and now there's only 6.
Yeah.
So, and then on one hand, you have HOA going up. So if I'm an HOA company, I'd be scared because one, my HOA is going up because of insurance. Let's talk about insurance also, because that's another wrench in the thing. So my HOA is going up, but my gardening cost or quality is going down. So let's talk about insurance.
The HOA could go up because they have got to pay more money for the landscapers who are probably charging more because they probably have to pay their few remaining employees or less employees more money.
Right.
For doing twice the work.
Right. What's happening with the insurance cost? I know you mentioned HOA went up, and most of that is because of insurance. How bad is the insurance scenario there?
It is. On the good thing is that there are more companies who came back to more insurance companies who came back to Florida, which was great because for a little while it was kind of a disaster, right? Because insurance companies are in the kind of risk reward business, right?
Right.
We'll take your money until we have to pay out, and then it's like, oh my gosh. So a lot of the insurance companies left. Good things. A lot of them came back, or a lot of other companies came in, which was great. So that is helping tremendously. But it's a major issue because they are revisiting what's a flood zone.
Right.
And there were obviously areas that flooded that were not in flood zones. So people did not have insurance because they didn't need it.
Right.
And, like I said, insurance is in the risk reward. So those fees are going up because it is highly likely, at least for Florida, that we're going to get some more storms.
Yeah.
And worse storms.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to come. I mean, you can't stop storm. Natural disasters, right?
Yeah, and they're coming and they're getting worse, whether you want to believe it or not.
They're getting stronger.
Yes, and getting stronger.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about something else that impacts the housing. That's inflationary pressures, and this is the same article that I talked earlier about. It talks about the tariffs contribute to overall inflation by increasing the cost of goods and services related to housing. This can indirectly affect mortgage interest rates, as central banks may adjust rates to manage inflation, further increasing the cost of homeownership. And we just talked about that. Tariffs directly impact housing costs through higher material prices, increased home prices, and reduced construction activity. These effects ripple throughout the housing market, influencing affordability, usually less affordable, supply and demand dynamics. Let's talk about the indirect effects on the housing market. Tariffs have a clear and immediate direct impact on housing costs through material price increases. Still, their indirect effects on broader housing markets are equally significant. These indirect effects often ripple through the economy, influencing various factors such as supply chain stability, labor markets, consumer confidence, and financial conditions. This section explores the key direct ways tariffs affect the housing market. So one of the things that hits me on this paragraph is the consumer confidence. And I know overall, what do you think, Adam? What are buyers and sellers feeling right now as far as confidence and buying and selling and in the general market?
Yeah, my perception is that a lot of sellers, at least here, are starting to realize that the market is changing. And that if they want to get the most money possible, it's best to get it on the market now than to wait 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year from now when prices are down significantly more. And it's that catch-22 because obviously our inventory is going through the roof. And, the more houses available, the less likely that prices are going to go up. They're more likely going to go down because buyers have more options now.
Right.
The buyers have more options, but interest rates are still high. So buyers are not pulling the trigger. There's another statistic I wanted to give you from earlier.
Sure.
In the last 30 days, we have had a little over 3,300 properties expire.
What does that mean? Just explain.
So expired is when a property that is listed for sale comes off of the market, no longer for sale. And generally speaking, that happens when the listing agreement expires. When you hire a real estate agent to sell your house, you sign a listing agreement. Generally speaking, this is not a rule of thumb, but it's 6 months to a year. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less.
Right.
Just assume for this argument, it's 6 months. So after 180 days, the property failed to sell, it expired, it came off of the market.
Right. And there's a lot of reasons a house does not sell, but what's the number one reason a house does not sell? Number one.
As far from my understanding and my belief, there's only one reason only that a house fails to sell, and that is the price.
Oops. Yep. So now when all these expire, so if I had my house for sale for 160 days for, let's say, $400,000, it's maintained well. I don't have pet smells. I keep the lights on when somebody comes in. I've had open houses. I'm not fussy when buyers come in. I go out of the house. If it's not selling, and if I'm thinking about moving from Florida to Texas, where my son is, or my daughter is, or my mom is, if I have to sell, if it did not sell at $400,000 in the last 6 months, what do I need to do now to sell it? Because I got to sell it. I got medical issues. I got to sell. What should I list it at? That
is the as somebody who specialized in selling properties that fail to sell the first time, you have to have an honest conversation with the homeowner. Here's what it's going to take. I am great at marketing. I cannot make your house worth more than market value. And even if you had the worst agent in the world, at minimum, they put it into multiple listing service where at least thousands, if not tens of thousands of people got to see your property, even if it was terrible photographs and terrible marketing. And it still did not sell at $400,000, which means it's got to get listed at less than that. And if prices at homes are selling at X dollar amount, like here, it's dropping down to like 94% of the asking price. Right. Meaning you list it at $100,000, it sells for $94,000.
Right.
So you have to have those realistic conversations. And my conversations usually list it now, or if you can hang tight, wait 3 or 4 years and see what happens.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and I'm in the same thing. I've sold a lot of homes where the first time it did not sell. And so let's say the market value is 375. You're the agent and I'm the seller. And so, it was a 400. The other agent didn't do anything. He was an idiot. Of course, they blame the agent, right? But it's the price. And now you come to my house and you think it's 375, but I say, you know what? I'll list with you for 390. What's bad about listing it at 390? Because what are the chances of, if it doesn't sell, what's my drawback?
Well, the downside is a couple of things. I can't speak for every real estate market. I know in our real estate market, there's always the history. And I know as a real estate agent, I always look at the history. Like if your house goes listed for sale, I immediately go to the history for my own knowledge, right? When did they buy it? When did they buy it? Was it listed for sale before? And buyers nowadays have access to a lot of this information as well too. So the last thing you want is a buyer or an agent to believe that you're just not motivated. Right? Because now my job representing you as the buyer's agent is to get you into a home that you can buy and actually close on. Right? Maybe you accepted a job. Maybe you're selling a house and you're moving into a house, but you have to get into that house. I can't waste your time, Mike, showing you a house where the seller is not motivated. Exactly. Right. So I don't show you the house. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or I show you the house. Yeah, it's not going to sell. If there's no showings, and nobody's going to buy it, right? Yeah. Or I show you the house. I love this as a strategy. I know sellers hate to hear it, but I show your house to go help sell another house. Yeah. So this one's 390, but the same house down the street is 375. It's got cleaner carpet. Buy that. Yep. There you go. And so you use this house as a dog, what we call dog, to sell that house. Yeah. Price is right. Your overpriced house just helps sell another house. Exactly. Right. Okay.
I want to touch on another article while we're talking about it. And let me bring it on the screen here quickly. So, oops, stop camera.
You just deleted yourself.
Oh, sometimes that things happen. Let's see, where is the share button here? Present. Okay, share screen. Okay, now you can see, right? Can you see the screen? It says assessing the potential impact of tariffs on the housing market. This is from Redfin, right? And let's talk about seeing high mortgage rates for longer. So I'm not going to read the first sentence. Let's jump right into the article. It says, how inflationary will these tariffs be? Let's read what it says. The ultimate magnitude is difficult to predict and depends partly on how universal they are. In general, the more difficult it is to substitute away from the goods that are being tariffed, the higher the likelihood that prices will broadly increase. That means the more goods and the more countries that are affected, the worse the inflation effect. In addition, currency devaluation may also offset some of the inflationary effect on tariffs, but the magnitude of that offset is difficult to predict in advance. Finally, macroeconomic conditions matter. We talked about this, right? Local markets. Yep. When President Trump levied new tariffs on specific goods from China in 2018, prices for those goods increased, but the broader economy did not experience high inflation because of how low inflation had been leading up to that period. The result is likely to be different this time because the Fed has been battling high inflation for 3 years and the job is not yet finished. Yep. So what does that tell you? What one thing that takes on that paragraph?
Yeah, so that's an interesting analysis that is hard to argue with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and you know, some people don't like data and some people don't like the facts, but that paragraph right there sums it up. But because the inflationary levels were so low in 2018, the effects were not really felt as drastic as they would be now when the inflation rate is still fairly high. It's coming down, but it's significantly higher than it was in 2018. So those increases in prices will be felt much more severely than they were back in 2018. Right.
Okay. So, and that's one reason, and I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert in there. I basically sell homes and help buyers buy, but I have to know a little bit about it. One thing I know is that one of the reasons the Fed does not want to drop the rates, right? Because to control the inflation as well, right? They don't want the inflation to go up.
Yep.
Right. And if they drop the rates, it may have an impact on inflation. We don't know, or they don't know. So that's why there is the battle between the Trump administration, who says drop it to 3% or 4% or 5%, and the Feds are hanging on to it because it has a direct impact. Usually, from what I've seen reports, the mortgage rates, right? I'm talking about the home mortgage rates follow the inflationary rates. When they go up, the rates go up. When inflation goes down, it comes down. So there's a lot of things going on. You have the tariffs going on. You have the rates going on. You have retail sales today. I've just read a report. Retail sales last month only grew by 0.1%, which is very low.
That's low
from expectations. And we're talking national retail sales. Consumers are cutting back. Consumers, including mine, the credit card balance is going up and up and up.
Yep.
Right? So people are feeling the pain.
Big issue. Yep.
There's what I'm trying to say is, and I'm trying not to be negative, but these are facts. We have a bump in the road when it comes to housing right now. And more bumps coming. Right? Affordability is becoming lower. Construction costs are going to higher, so the homes are going to go up. Rates are staying high. I can't afford the home. On top of that, I just bought a car and my insurance went up. My car payments go up, right? And all of a sudden, I can't afford the home. I've even seen reports. In fact, I just did a video yesterday. It's coming out next week. It talks about how sellers like me and probably you, boomers or elder sellers who have been in the house, cannot sell their house to buy another house because I'm not going to move from 3% to 6%. Yep. I'm not going to go for my property tax that's over here in California. We're assessed property tax on the assessed value, which is low compared to my resale value. So I'm not going to sell my house to jump and pay higher mortgage, right? At the same time, an average home seller cannot afford to fix his house or renovate his house because if they don't have any money, they have a lot of money in the house because the house went from here to here.
Yep.
But money is in the house in the equity. It's not in my pocket. So what do? A lot of seniors are stuck. They can't sell to buy another one, and they can't afford to stay in the same house because it's too expensive.
Yeah. And then I've heard that too. I mean, I've done a video that too. The article says like, I think it's like 65% of homeowners have mortgage rates less than 4%. And 50% of homeowners say that they will not sell unless interest rates gets to about 5%. I don't know if that's in the fives or 5%. Because again, they don't want to trade their 2.5%, 3% interest rate for 6%, 7%. So they're just going to hang tight. And the challenge is again, I have not heard anybody except for politicians saying anything about interest rates in the fives. I don't personally don't believe it's going to happen in the fives this year, which means that again, that's the inventory problem. Sellers don't want to sell, right? Because they don't want to trade their inventory, which means that there's low inventory. And if builders, not including my area where they're building like crazy, but if builders don't want to build, right, because they can't afford it now, we're still stuck in the inventory issue.
Right. But here's another thing that's a catch-22. Let's say, for the buyer's sake, rates drop to 5%. I myself will be jumping because a lot of buyers that I have friends who want to buy, they can't afford it because it's 7% that throws them off the market. Because over here, a house is $1 million. So 1% makes a big difference. But let's say it does go to 5% in June. Hey, thanks. Here's what's going to happen. And you know this too.
Yep.
If the rates go to 5%, what's going to happen? We're going to be flooded with buyers.
Yep.
There's going to be multiple offers. And what happens when there's multiple offers to the home prices?
Prices go up.
So we're back to square one. September, we're back to square one. Prices will only go up. So it'll be a temporary thing. Those who get lucky and get 5% housing, they'll be lucky, but it's not going to last for a long time. Prices will go up, and all of a sudden, yes, it dropped to 5%, but the $1 million house is now worth 1.4, and you're back out of the market again.
Yeah, I have a dry erase board, and I'm going to do a video because people like to see things.
Okay.
Right. A house at $1 million and interest rates at 6.8%. Right. What's your mortgage going to be? 10% down, whatever it is. And let's say interest rates do drop. So interest rates drop a whole point. Now they're 5.78, but prices go up 10%, right? To 1.1. Right. It's just about the same. Right. But probably more competition because interest rates are low, and you're going to be, you know what happens. Interest rates are low. You're going to get buyers overpaying. You're going to get buyers putting in offers over asking price.
Right. So go ahead. I have a comment. I'm just replying to it. Go ahead.
Yeah. You'll save on your mortgage.
Right.
On your mortgage rate, but your payments will be just as high.
Right. Yeah. So it's either way you lose. You can't win, right? I mean, 5% are great, and also there'll be a lot of refi. So that's good because some of the sellers won't sell again because if I had a 7% and if I was thinking of moving, now I'm saying, oh look, I'm going to get 5%, so I'm going to refi and save $300, $400, So
yeah, I can't remember what the term is, but you're basically stuck in your house solely because of the interest rates.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. So we had a comment, so I just replied to that. Not a comment, but they were just saying that the discussion was great. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. So that was from Rad Gantus. Do you know him by any chance?
I don't, but Anaheim Hills, beautiful area.
Yeah. Okay.
Your area is beautiful too. You know, I used to live in that area, right? I used to live in Mission Viejo.
Yeah, you were, and then you moved to Hawaii from here, or
no, I moved from Mission Viejo actually to Florida, and then to Hawaii.
Okay.
And then back to Florida.
Right. Okay. All right. So I got a little bit distracted, but let's continue with this article because this makes a lot of sense. The other thing it says is going back to the Feds, and I know I murmured a whole bunch of stuff, but let's see what Redfin is saying. How will the Fed react? The Fed does not have to react to high inflation caused by tariffs because it is a one-time price increase. Indeed, in 2018, they decided to look through the new tariffs because inflation was low. As you mentioned, Adam, earlier, inflation was low, and they were more concerned with weak economic growth. This time around, however, all signs point to a different reaction because inflation remains above their 2% target. While they are unlikely to hike rates, they will be more reluctant to continue the cutting cycle if broad-based tariffs are imposed, especially if the economy remains strong.
Yeah.
So what
It's
this says is that
another
rates are
catch
not going
22.
anywhere, right? What
What's
does
that?
it say?
Yeah. They're gonna hang tight and wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say what you want about the Feds and what they're doing, but so far, knock on wood, they have avoided us going into recession. I've heard more talk about going to recession this year than I have in the last couple of years, and I think they're concerned about it.
Yeah, I've heard many times. I've seen on YouTube videos that I monitor. I've read some articles, and a recession has popped up quite a few times. So it is popping up, although we don't see any signs. Experts do, and don't know how expert they are, but we're seeing some signs. Let's talk about how will bond market reacts. Whether mortgage rates go high or just stay where they are for longer depends ultimately on the bond market reaction. Bond markets have already priced in significant new tariffs as it became clear that President Trump was returning to the office. Whether mortgage rates increase now depends on how the implemented policy ultimately compares to what markets were expecting the president to do. Markets may also use this episode to forecast whether more tariffs are on the way. I don't know a whole lot about bond markets, but any comments on that, Adam?
No, I'm not too familiar with the bond markets, but I understand enough to know that the market was kind of proactive reacting
Mhm.
when they thought or when they knew that Trump was going to get back into office.
Right,
So I think that probably helped, but
right,
I think a lot of it is wait and see. A lot of it is
Mhm.
let's see what happens.
right,
And then I think from now on it's going to be reactionary as opposed to I don't know what the
right,
word is when you are pre-reactive, whatever that word is,
right.
when
Yeah,
you react ahead of time.
right.
Because now you're not really reacting ahead of time. Like now it's live. Now it's happening.
It's happening, right? Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's look at the last thing they mentioned here is the lower economic growth, and this is due to the tariffs. That's what we're talking about, and the housing market. But of course, the better the economy, the better the housing market usually. So, depending on the extent of retaliation from Canada, Mexico, and China, not to mention Europe as well, because of the steel and tariffs, tariffs are also likely to reduce economic growth. Whoops, what happened here? Estimates vary and depend on the specifics of the policy, but the US economy has already been gradually weakening under the strain of high interest rates. Housing demand, oh, I'm sorry, let's see. Okay, can you see that? Okay, housing demand would weaken if there is significant labor market deterioration. The worst case outcome would be a stagflation scenario with entrenched inflation and the weak economic growth. So I guess the housing tariffs, everything is tied together, right? I mean,
It's all tied together.
all tied together. And if one thing goes down, the other thing goes down. But aside from all these reports, as a realtor, whether you're in Florida or, let's talk about the national. What's your opinion on where the market is headed? And this is your true, genuine opinion as a specific realtor. Doesn't matter, you have your own opinion. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the interest rates have to come down. The
mhm,
mortgage interest rates have to come down, and that will help with a whole lot of things because that is the trickle down
right.
economics. You know that there are people who are stuck where they currently live. A lot of people, I don't know the exact figure, moved during the pandemic, right? They can work remotely. Decided now that wherever they are, they don't like where they live and they want to go either back where they came from or to someplace new. And they can't
Mhm,
do that right now because
right,
interest rates are too high. They don't want
right.
to trade in their low mortgage rates.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be just a whole lot of waiting and seeing, whether that's new businesses starting up. Can't start my business right now. Got to wait and see. Can't hire anybody. I got to wait and see. Can't sell my house right now. I got to wait and see. Can't
Mhm,
buy a house right now. I've got to wait and see. And you can see that how that trickles down to not a great thing for the country, not great for the economy. And then that trickles down, right? It trickles down to the restaurants. It trickles down to the store where you go food shopping. So
mhm.
all of that, right? If I have less money in my pocket, it's less money I'm spending on vacations, less money I'm spending on, house updates, less
Right.
money I'm spending on new cars.
Right. Yeah. You know, when you talk about vacation and all that, since we're talking about tariffs, I read a report again specifically for Florida. Is that about these are tourist companies or tourist organizations? They've seen already 40% drop in the traffic coming to USA because of tariffs. Because of tariffs, and also because they're, sorry to use this word, they're pissed at US. They're mad.
For sure. Yes.
Right? We've seen 40%, and this is just 2 months. What's the impact going to be over the next few years as more stuff coming up? I mean, there's a trade war going in between US and Canada. They've been friends for so long. They've been allies for long. Now there's wars going on, quote, of words and tariffs and policies. And that's not a good thing because, as you mentioned, trickle-down effect.
Yep.
You know,
for sure. Especially in like those little, I mean, I am in the suburbs, but I'm close enough to the beach to know that, you know, that economy is dependent on tourism. And if you get people going to visit somewhere else because they're ticked off at America,
but they're going to Bahamas. A lot of them are going to Bahamas and
anywhere else.
Puerto Rico, they're going there.
Anywhere else that is not the United States will have an impact on our economy, right? Because, you know, if I come stay at a hotel or if I stay at an Airbnb, there's trickle down, right? I'm shopping locally at the supermarket. I am shopping at the tourist t-shirt shop. I'm going to the local restaurant. I'm shopping at the gas station, right? It's all that trickle down. And if I'm not coming there because I'm ticked, now, if that's short term, who knows? If it's long term, who knows? But it definitely has an impact on a mom and pop store for sure.
Right. Yeah. Uber drivers, airport workers,
all of that.
Pilots, you know, air hostesses, because, you know, I mean, everything's cutting down.
Yeah.
Trains, a lot of things, especially Airbnb, hotels, and the restaurant. They'll big impact on those guys.
Big impact, and those industries are already struggling.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Let me see here. Rad put up. We do hospitality design and high-end homes. Good to know that. Sure, we'll keep that in mind. Here's another comment from Rad. The need to develop a sustainable long-term strategy is absolutely necessary, and especially with the changing demographics and age demographic, specifically in areas such as Orange County and Florida. The days of continuing to stick our heads in the sand and hope for better, tomorrow's hard winding fast, if I'm not already over. Okay, that makes sense. Think of all the changes in travel habits that happened after 9/11. For the longest time, when people didn't feel comfortable about coming to the United States, certain parts of the world, because they were worried about being profiled. Yeah, some great comments.
Yeah, that is all
makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you seem to be up to date on it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Let me see here. Okay. Yeah, appreciate your comments.
Yeah, if I could touch really quick on that,
Sure.
I was comment about age demographics, specifically in Florida. It has been the primary goal of, I don't know if it's the Florida Chamber of Commerce, but certainly government, to attract retirees to Florida, which is great. But unfortunately, we need to have like a lot more younger people in here, right, who are going to be contributing more financially to the economy, and the state in general. There's pockets of it, but generally speaking, you know, tech companies are not moving to Florida, right? And to just solely be attracting, you know, older people, it's great for some things, but not for a whole lot of other things.
Right. So not switching the subject here, but while we're talking about people moving in, and I'm talking about Florida because you're the guest, so we're talking Florida, but it's happening in other states as well, like Texas and Arizona. But more in Florida. I'm doing a video next week. I'm going to record it today. And the title is "Get Out of Florida."
It's happening.
Okay. So one of the things I read, and I did a video 3 months ago. You can look on my channel. It'll be there. It's called "Get Out of California" and also "Get Out of Florida." But I'm doing another one. One of the things I mentioned in the report based on stats is that, yes, the net migration is still positive in Florida, but the big but, a lot of the Floridians are getting out. The more people are leaving Florida than before. And one of the main reasons is, of course, housing and insurance and HOA and cost. They're going to states like North Carolina, South Carolina, even Texas and Montana.
Correct.
So let's talk about it. You probably know more about that. Tell us what's going on.
I just did a similar video on it. A couple things. A lot of people moved here during the pandemic. I literally just did a video on this. A lot of people moved here during the pandemic. It was cheap. And
cheap
it was open.
Buy homes there.
Just everything in general was cheap.
Okay.
And it was open, right? No pandemic in Florida, fully open. So a lot of people moved here.
Right.
And then the reality was we got hit with a bunch of hurricanes since the pandemic. And costs have risen, right? All the things we just mentioned, HOA, taxes, insurance, just everything went up. And it's not as cheap as it was. Right. And as much as, the comments were not great when I said this, but it doesn't make it not true. There are a lot of people who don't like the politics here.
Right.
There are a lot of people who do, which is
politics. Right.
Big politics. A lot of people, obviously move here for that, but a lot of people moved away for that as well too. More people than you think of. And of course the argument is, well, fine, get out of the States. Yeah. But the reality is people left anyway.
Right. What's happening with, I saw some report, and I don't know if it's fake news because today you don't know what to believe. What's happening with the property taxes there? Is it gone?
He's talking about getting rid of the property tax. Might as well.
But it hasn't happened yet, right?
Hasn't happened. No.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I understand the argument for sure.
What can you tell us what it is? I have no idea what it is and how it'll help. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, basically, it's an extra cost. It's kind of the catch-22 because the money's got to come from somewhere, right?
Right.
It's basically talking about, you're continuing to tax somebody on a property they own, right? You're just you're paying your taxes on it. So that was kind of I think the argument of why to get rid of it. However, that tax money goes for things, right? So if you get rid of that, where do you make up that money from?
Right.
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. So let's say you make $1 billion every. I'm just throwing a number. Florida makes $1 billion. Could be 10 billion, but let's say 1 billion. Billion. That's great. I'm a homeowner. I'm paying $3,000 a year in taxes. Now I don't have to pay. Hey, I got my vacation money. I'm happy. Yeah. But my grandkids or kids go to school, and I hope they don't bite out of the school or bite out of the library or the fire department. So now where is Florida going to get that $1 billion from?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this on Maui when I was there too. They charge the tourists. I think you and I had this conversation the last time too. Like the property taxes for a resident in Hawaii, like our taxes were like cheap, couple $100 a year, but for somebody buying a property that was not their primary residence, and Florida can probably do the same thing. You just charge them significantly more, like 4 or 5 times the amount.
In taxes, you mean, or
yeah. So if I'm the primary residence, my taxes $1,000. If I'm buying a vacation rental or a second home, my taxes are $9,000.
Right.
Can you make up that dollar amount? Maybe. I don't know. Not my area of expertise.
All that is, the money has to come from somewhere, right? So somebody's going to pay for it, and usually it's you and me, the homeowner, the renter, the investor. It's going to be back to us. So it's like stealing from one pocket, putting in another pocket. Yeah,
like I said, I don't know enough about it. I mean, I guess if you want to tax the people who come visit, if you can make that up, that sounds great for the residents for sure. Again, in theory, it sounds great. I don't want to pay property tax.
No, but we're already paying that. And I've been to Florida many times. My in-laws are there in Florida. I come there all the time, stay in a hotel, right? You pay the occupancy tax on top of the sales tax. Yep. So you're paying not only the sales tax, I don't know what the Florida sales tax, I'm paying that, but then you pay the TOT, which is the transient occupancy tax.
Correct.
And then you pay the resort fees, which is ridiculous for the parking, you know. So you're paying $100 extra per day on this crappy
could be all that.
How much
money's got to come
we
from somewhere.
That?
Maybe it's tolls, maybe it's a gas tax. It is robbing Peter to pay Paul, but I guess in this case, if you are, if you're the residents and you're saving money, fantastic. I don't care if the other guy's paying more in taxes, unless of course they choose not to come to Florida, because right now the $100 hotel is costing $500 because you got all these miscellaneous taxes. I don't know. Be interesting to see how it plays out.
Or is it at the end of the day, like I said, this is not a political channel, but is the end of the day is a political stunt to get more views, or I don't know. Could be that. I mean, hope is that. I mean, I don't know.
Say what you want about our governor, but he's all about the show.
Okay. All right. Well, but let's see what happens on the tax, because I think if they take out the property tax, I'm sure some other states will see the bad and good, or good and bad about it, and implement that in their states. Who knows?
For sure.
We're lucky in California. Our taxes is 1.02 or 1.1 on average, depending on the county. So we're very lucky, and it's based on your assessed value, what the county assesses the value, not on your current value, not the appraised value. So we're very lucky. But I know some of the states, I don't know how are you guys taxed in Florida and property?
It's on the assessed value. Yeah.
Okay. But what's your percentage of tax?
Is
it on a purchase price, or
different per county? I can't remember what it is. In Manatee, it's low, but it's higher than it is in other places.
Okay, so you by county. On average, we're about 1% on average, but depending on the county, it's not that much different.
Yeah, I think we're like 0.0. Don't hold me to this one, but 0.08 something.
Okay. Yeah. But these days on new construction, there, okay, even though, so there's a distinction, and if you're viewing here, there's two kinds of taxes. One is the property tax, but I just sold a house in Fontana and sold a house in Irvine. Their quote property tax comes out to 1.7, 1.9, but that's different than property tax. Property tax is your 1%, but then they have this assessed value and your Melrose and bonds and all that. So that's really not property tax, but they call it a property tax of 1.7, but it's really not property tax, even though they call it, so you have to be careful, so yeah. So, okay, with that, I think we've covered a lot of things. End of the day, you want to summarize what we discussed today, or what's your last minute thing?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. If you are a buyer looking to buy in Florida, man, I would do it now. There's some great opportunities here, especially new construction, great incentives.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're a seller, just be prepared for the changing market.
Changing down, potentially down.
Changing down. Yep.
So it might be better to sell now, as we have been like this, and I'm talking about Florida as a seller. I'm seeing properties going up like this. It has bottomed out. It has turned a little bit down. So you want to sell here, or you want to sell there?
Yeah, there's no question the prices are coming down. We see it happening. I don't see that stopping. I mean, I see people like, they're going to come down 30%. They're going to come down 50%. I mean, we're like 8 to 10% right now. Is it going to come down a little more than that? Probably. Okay. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I don't think it's going to drop down 30 or 50%.
So Florida has been really affected quite a bit compared to California. So
the prices were so jacked up.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I mean, prices went through the roof.
And also, what happened was, how many Californians came there? I'm sure you sold a lot of homes to Californians, right?
A lot of people,
Chicago people, New York people, Washington people. All those people came to Florida, Texas, Arizona.
Yep.
Now that the inventory is low and number of home sales are low, Florida will be directly impacted. Forget the tariffs.
Yep.
But one of the factors is Californians are not going there because we have a shortage of inventory, because guys like me who have 3% not selling.
Yep.
Even though I'd like to, I'm not going to sell at 3%. And I'm not moving to Texas or Florida, right? I'd love to move there, get a brand new house, single story, but I can't.
Yeah.
So, direct impact.
Interesting to see what happens this year.
Right. Yeah, so let's see what happens. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, if you need any information on Florida, want to move there or sell Florida, call Adam. Any place else, direct message me. We'll find you a great agent. Thanks for watching. I have been doing it at 4:30 at 5 o'clock on my live stream, but I think 4:30 might be a better bet. So I'm going to go back to 4:30 as my time, because I think it's better for people to watch at 4:30. So next week it'll start at 4:30. I'll put it on my website channel. You'll know about it. But thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
In the description, if you need to email him, feel free to call him or email him. And thanks for watching. Appreciate it.